The case of Wilford Lee Berry Jr., a brutal murderer who shocked the entire state. He not only savagely took the life of his employer, but also became a historical figure with the nickname the Volunteer, the first prisoner in Ohio to voluntarily waive all appeals to face the death penalty. From the darkest moments of the crime to the moment he drew his last breath in the execution chamber at San Quentin. In today's video, we will together turn a dark page in the history of Ohio's justice system. What pushed Wilford Lee Berry Jr. down a path of no return, and why did he choose to end his life so proactively? Let's find out about the last meal he chose, the last words spoken before ending his life, and uncover the story behind this case. The case we are discussing revolves around a respectable man, Mr. Charles Mitro, 52, the owner and operator of a bakery in Cleveland, Ohio. Mr. Mitro was not only a diligent businessman, but also a member of the community who had spent his life building his career and contributing to society. On November 30th, 1989, after completing his usual delivery route, Mr. Charles Mitro returned to his bakery, a place that should have been safe and familiar. But fate had a cruel script in store. Right in his own workplace, he was ambushed and brutally murdered by his former employee. Mr. Mitro's death was not only a great loss for his family and friends, but also a shock to the community, leaving everyone stunned by the brutality of the crime. The death of an honest man like Mr. Charles Mitro opened a dramatic investigation and an unprecedented legal story. So who was the perpetrator of this heinous crime? It was Wilford Lee Berry Jr., born on September 2, 1962. Information about Berry's childhood is quite limited, but what we know of his life reveals an individual with problems from an early age. Since childhood, Berry was unable to integrate well with society, showing signs of psychological instability and deviant behavior. He was not just a murderer, but also a special case in the history of the death penalty in the United States. Berry was nicknamed the Volunteer for a specific reason. He was the first death row inmate in Ohio to waive all rights to appeal his death sentence after the state reinstated capital punishment. This made him the focus of public opinion and ethical and legal debates. Did a troubled past and deep-seated psychological issues shape Berry's criminal path? Why would someone willingly accept death, even seeming to look forward to the execution? We will delve deeper into this complex individual to better understand the mysterious motivations behind his horrific choices. Was there a deep-seated cause that pushed him into the abyss of sin and self-destruction? On November 30th, 1989, a cold and brutal murder plan was carried out by Wilford Lee Berry Jr. and his accomplice, Anthony Lozer, targeting their employer, Charles Mitro. This was not a spontaneous act, but a carefully calculated conspiracy. Berry had equipped them both with guns, one for Lozer and one for himself. When Mr. Mitro, as usual, returned to the bakery after finishing his deliveries, the door of fate closed on his life. Lozer acted first, shooting Mr. Mitro in the torso. The victim collapsed to the floor, seriously injured and struggling to breathe. But the brutality did not stop there. Wilford Lee Berry Jr., with chilling coldness, approached Mr. Mitro and fired another shot into the victim's head, completely ending his life. After the murder, Berry and Lozer tried to cover up their crime by digging a shallow grave near a bridge to bury Mr. Mitro's body. To complete their dark plan, they also stole the victim's delivery truck. This truck later became a crucial piece of evidence in the case. More shockingly, after his arrest, Berry showed no remorse. On the contrary, he bragged about the murder to other inmates in jail, displaying a terrifying disregard for human life. During his incarceration, Berry gave two conflicting explanations for his motive. On one hand, he said he killed Mr. Mitro in revenge because he had nearly run over his sister with the delivery truck. On the other hand, he claimed he killed for no particular reason. This contradiction in his statements added to the mystery and horror surrounding Barry's true motive. What really drove him to commit such a brutal act, or was it simply the outburst of a corrupted soul? Following the murder of Mr. Charles Mitro, the investigation proceeded quickly and efficiently, leading to the arrest of Wilford Lee Barry Jr. The pivotal moment occurred when Barry was arrested in Kentucky. He was driving the victim's stolen delivery truck while intoxicated. This was the starting point for police to link him to the crime. Immediately after his arrest, Wilford Lee Barry Jr. did not hesitate to confess to the police. In prison, he even bragged about the murder to his fellow inmates, which further strengthened the evidence against him. Based on Barry's full confessions and a large amount of indirect but highly convincing forensic evidence from the scene, the jury had sufficient grounds to convict him. This evidence included fingerprints, physical evidence collected at the bakery, and the burial site, all pointing to Wilford Lee Barry Jr. as the main perpetrator. The coordination between local police and state authorities ensured a smooth investigation. As a result, Barry was convicted of aggravated murder with death penalty specifications, aggravated robbery, and aggravated burglary. This investigation proved that no crime can be hidden forever from the persistence and professionalism of law enforcement. But did Wilford Lee Barry Jr. ever think he could evade justice forever, or had he accepted his fate from the beginning? The trial of Wilford Lee Barry Jr. was an event that drew significant public and legal attention. With clear confessions and compelling evidence, the jury quickly reached a verdict. Barry was guilty of aggravated murder with aggravating circumstances, along with charges related to robbery and burglary. He was officially sentenced to death. However, the story did not end there. After his direct appeal in 1997, a surprising development occurred. Barry informed the state court that he wished to waive all further appeals of his sentence and wanted his death sentence to be carried out. This voluntary decision sparked a major controversy. The Ohio Public Defender's Office, which was required to represent Barry in his appeal, argued that he was not mentally competent to make such a momentous decision. The state of Ohio filed a motion for a competency hearing with the Ohio Supreme Court. The court ordered a psychological evaluation of Barry. 2 court-appointed psychiatrists diagnosed Barry with a mixed personality disorder with schizotypal borderline and antisocial traits, features indicating difficulties in thought and behavior. However, they still concluded that he was competent to waive his rights. The public defender's office called witnesses, including a psychologist who concluded Barry was incompetent, citing his schizotypal personality disorder, rigid thought processes, extreme isolationist tendencies, and susceptibility to psychosis under stress. Despite strong arguments from the defense, after reviewing all the evidence, the trial judge issued an order on July 22, 1997, affirming that despite his personality disorder, Barry was competent to waive any and all further legal challenges. The death sentence for Wilford Lee Barry Jr. was upheld. But did this sentence and Barry's surprising choice truly bring justice and closure to the pain of those left behind? The final fateful day arrived for Wilford Lee Barry Jr. on February 19, 1999, in the execution chamber of the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility. Note the original text incorrectly states San Quentin, which is in California. The execution took place in Ohio. He faced death by lethal injection. This was a historic event, not only for Barry, but also for the state of Ohio, marking the first time a volunteer prisoner was executed after the death penalty was reinstated. Before his execution, Barry's life in prison was also dramatic. On September 5, 1997, he was viciously attacked by other inmates in his cell block during a riot. Barry was targeted because his volunteer status had angered the death row community, who feared his actions would negatively affect their own efforts to delay their executions. The attack left Barry with a severely fractured jaw and facial bones requiring surgery, and the insertion of metal plates. His right hand was also severely injured as he tried to protect his head from blows with a heavy lock on a chain. He also suffered broken ribs and bruised internal organs. Although these injuries were used by Berry's supporters as evidence to argue that he was no longer competent, both state and federal courts rejected this argument. On the day of his execution, Berry refused a last meal. Instead, he only consumed light items like tea broth and Gatorade. His final hours were spent with spiritual advisors and his lawyers. When asked for his last words, Wilford Lee Berry Jr. spoke only a single short but mysterious word: peace. At 12:06 a.m., the lethal injection process began, and he was pronounced dead at 12:13 a.m. Berry's death closed a painful yet controversial chapter, leaving many unanswered questions. The case of Wilford Lee Berry Jr. and his unusual death have left behind profound questions about justice, criminal psychology, and the legal system. What turns a person into a cold-blooded murderer, and why would he voluntarily accept death in such a way? The family of Mr. Charles Mitro lost a loved one, and that pain surely remains. Berry's case is not just a personal tragedy, but also a mirror reflecting complex issues within society and human psychology. Berry's decision to waive his appeal rights ignited a fierce legal and ethical debate about the mental competency of death row inmates. Can a person diagnosed with a mixed personality disorder with schizotypal and borderline traits truly be lucid enough to make such a life-or-death decision? This controversy highlights the challenges the justice system faces when dealing with complex cases where the line between mental illness and criminal responsibility becomes blurred. Furthermore, the fact that Berry's accomplice Anthony Lozar received only a life sentence and could be considered for parole in 2036, while Berry received the death penalty, also raises questions about fairness in sentencing. Were the levels of involvement and responsibility accurately assessed to result in such different judgments? The Wilford Lee Berry Jr. case is a powerful reminder of the fragility of life and the complex nature of evil. It questions society's role in identifying and intervening early with individuals showing signs of psychological instability to prevent similar tragedies from occurring. At the same time, it is also a lesson on the importance of ensuring that justice is administered as fairly and humanely as possible.